Welcome to my search strategy presentation. First off, I developed a PICO table. To do this, I considered the key factors of the clinical scenario. Here's the clinical scenario. I've highlighted the key factors here. You may notice that there's a number at the top right-hand corner of the slide. This is in reference to the 5-step evidence-based practice process. I then extracted the key info from the clinical scenario. Here is the table that I developed from the key info. Each element from the clinical scenario is highlighted. So the population is elderly persons with Parkinson's disease. The intervention is therapy to improve the clarity of his speech, and the outcome is to improve the clarity of his speech. From the identified elements, I was able to develop a PICO question. The PICO question is, in elderly adults with Parkinson's disease, is speech therapy for intelligibility effective for improving the clarity of speech? Here's a table with the search terms that I'll be using in my search strategy. I haven't included a comparison therapy, as I want to include all kinds of comparison therapies, including no treatment and placebo, and I don't want to rule out any kinds of comparison therapies. This slide is in reference to the Boolean operators I'll be using in my searches. To combine the elements of the PICO table, the Boolean operator AND is used to ensure that at least one term from each PICO element is used. For synonyms in the search strategy, under each element of the PICO table, whether it be population, intervention, or outcome, we use the Boolean operator OR. So Parkinson's disease or Parkinson's disease. This slide is in reference to truncations, which maximize my relevant search terms in the keyword search. For example, I've entered speech therapy truncation, and this is to ensure that speech therapist and speech therapy are terms that are included when I do my keyword search. This slide is just a note on wildcards. The wildcards is a search enhancer that is used when there may be different spelling for a term. When I did my preliminary searches for these search terms, I didn't find any alternate spellings for any of these terms, so I haven't used any wildcards in my search strategy. Meet our 3 players. I'll be using Medline, Cinal, and SpeechBite for my searches. First, I'll show you my search strategy on Medline. I began the search looking for subject headings in the population element of the PICO table. This search gave me only one relevant subject heading, so I included all subheadings and exploded. This ensures that all records that list Parkinson's disease are retrieved. As you can see, the database suggested that I use Parkinson's disease and also Parkinson's in the keyword search. This is what we're about to do next. In keyword searching, we type in all of the keywords and link them by the Boolean operator OR. Parkinson's disease or Parkinson's disease. Now we want to combine the keyword and subject heading search with the Boolean operator OR to ensure that all synonymous terms for our population are included for this search. So that's combining the subject heading search with the keyword search. Do the same for intervention and the same for outcome. The last step before limiting the search is to combine all the elements of PICO. We do this with the Boolean operator AND. So 3 is population, 7 is intervention, and 10 is the outcome concept. The next step is limiting the search. This allows us to include important PICO elements that we identified in our table before, such as the age of the man. This is how I limited the search, and these are the limitations that I used. A study on humans conducted in the English language with the adult age group. I then identified relevant articles, and with the use of EndNote, I was able to search through abstracts of the articles and through the articles to identify which study design each study was. I hence put all of the relevant Medline articles in a table to be compared with the results from the other databases. To determine what study designs were for each of these articles, I referred to this article that you can see here. I then conducted my search on CINAHL. So we use the same principles on this database. We select the suggest subject terms box. We explode the subject heading if the database gives us the option, as seen here. Keywords are just typed into the search engine, no need to tick suggest subject terms box. Then we combine subject heading and keyword search with the Boolean operator OR, as I've done here. We do the same for intervention and the same for outcome. The last step before limiting a search is combining all the elements of PICO. Again, this is done by the use of the Boolean operator AND. Here is our search. This is the number of articles we have found. We want to limit this search now, so we'll click on Edit. Oh, well, here was before the limitations were put in. And it will come up with this. From here, we are going to choose English language studies and exclude Medline studies, as we've already searched the Medline database. And the study will be conducted on humans. Then have a look at the articles that it brings up by clicking on View Results option on the right-hand side of the search. I then looked through the articles and determined what kind of study each one was. I looked for buzzwords such as randomization and control, and for prospective studies, for example, when I was determining whether it was a randomized control. Final database is SpeechBite. I used 3 drop-down boxes to eliminate irrelevant articles. For speech pathology practice area, I selected the heading speech and the subheading articulation. Likewise, for the intervention, I selected speech, articulation, phonological therapy, and this is in relation to the intervention part of the PICO question. For the population, I chose people with degenerative disorders because I know from my preliminary searching that Parkinson's disease is a degenerative disorder, and the age group was adults that I chose. This brought up 8 articles, which I could rule out because a lot of them were irrelevant. For example, one had a pharmacological intervention, and another referred to another kind of degenerative disease, Huntington's. If I did want to look at the abstract of the article, I just clicked on this box and then selected Show Selected Articles. From there, I chose my top 5 articles, and they were from the following databases. I put systematic reviews as the top 4, as this is the highest level of evidence according to the NHMRC hierarchy. And I put the randomized control trial at the bottom. So here's our NHMRC hierarchy for intervention questions such as this: systematic review of level 2 studies, aka randomized control trials, are top, and second are randomized control trials. I put this article first as it seemed to address the PICO question the best. These are just my references. This is the study that I referred to when determining what study design it was, and this is the NHMRC hierarchy that I just showed you.